Ontario has continued to make progress as a result of its safe and cautious approach to reopening. We continue to have one of the lowest weekly case rates in the country, and our hospital intensive care capacity is currently stable. But to ensure that we maintain our progress, it is necessary to make this deliberate pause. We must remain vigilant.
Ontario is hitting the pause button on the next step of its reopening plan. It comes after a spike in COVID-19 cases. On November 15th, capacity limits were supposed to be lifted in remaining high-risk settings for event spaces where there is dancing, wedding receptions, nightclubs, strip clubs, and bathhouses.
That is not happening anymore, according to the province's medical officer of health. Officials say you can blame a higher reproduction number and positivity rate for this decision. So where do we go from here? And what does this mean for the holidays? Joining us live on CP24 tonight is Dr. Peter Juni, head of Ontario's Science Advisory Table, Dr. Barry Pakes, University of Toronto Public Health Professor, and Deonandan, University of Ottawa epidemiologist. It's great to see all of you. Thanks so much for being with us. Dr. Juni, I think there's a lot of people out there looking at these numbers thinking, uh-oh, what is happening? I want to be clear here. Our hospitalization numbers in Ontario are stable, but the positivity rate is quite high. What do you think is going on?
Well, this is just invariably just caused by the situation we're in. You know, the temperatures dropped mid-October. This means people are moving inside. We lifted a few more capacity limits. This contributes. Perhaps Halloween also played a little bit of a role. The point now is that our case numbers are currently doubling every 15 days, meaning the average of today of 560 per day on average could become roughly 1,100 in about 15 days, meaning we would like to leave this trajectory and flatten the curve again. And therefore, it makes perfect sense if you already accelerate not to step on the gas pedal and therefore not to lift the last capacity limits.
So, Dr. Juni, was this the right move? It comes just 24 hours after Health Minister Christine Elliott said the Ford government would be staying the course, no plans to roll things back. And Dr. Moore was quite clear today as well. He doesn't want to go backwards. He just wants this to kind of be a pause to help break up this trend that we're seeing.
This is absolutely true. You know, the point now is that we are in a so much better situation than a year ago, despite the fact that we have a much more transmissible variant out there with Delta. So what we need to do now is to stabilize the situation, figure out what's going on, and just fine-tune locally, you know, in the different public health units in the province, if it's needed, the public health measures. That's the point. And if we now just say we don't lift these capacity limits, then it's the right step. This avoids that we have to circle back. We don't know yet whether we need to do, you know, just some fine-tuning. But right now, this would also actually just happen on a local level, which is good.
Okay, Dr. Pakes, I want to bring you into this conversation. I think the fear tonight is what's next. Does this mean there are more restrictions on the way? That's everybody's fear at this point. We heard from the province's top doctor, as Beatrice noted, that he wants us to stay where we are. What would it take to change that?
Well, you know, as Dr. Juni just said, what it would take is a failure to flatten the curve or a continuation of this trend of doubling every 15 days. And what that really means, the big worry here is that in 6 to 8 weeks, when the winter holidays are there and we're all planning on gathering, if we're at a point of, you know, 1,000, 2,000 or even more, that's going to be a real accelerant, and that's going to mean a really unfortunate and challenging new year. If we can avoid that, continue, you know, on this trajectory or even head back down, thanks to people just being a little more vigilant in their own personal interactions, you know, I think we can have a much more successful holiday season and a much more successful new year with child vaccinations coming online.
Ray Watt, I'm curious if you feel as though this was necessary to impose province-wide. There are certain postal codes and regions across this province, including southwestern Ontario, near London, near Sudbury, where cases are growing exponentially. Percent positivity is near 15%. Was this necessary in a place like Toronto, where we're not seeing as big of an issue of transmission?
Oh, I think it is necessary. Let's think about it. We're talking here about nightclubs, bars, sex places like bathhouses and so forth. They're mostly concentrated in the big city areas. And it's also where we're going to have explosive cases if, in fact, we do see an increase in cases. So it's important that we do this on a blanket basis such that those key areas are covered. If we did this more locally, I'm concerned that we'd see explosions of outbreaks that we cannot contain given the unequal distribution of public health assets. Like, we probably could manage this in a more heterogeneous distribution, but it makes sense at this point to simplify the messaging, simplify the policies, and just understand that we're holding still as a province until we get things under control.
Dr. Pakes, this is a simple question. I think a lot of people are just tired of following the rules and restrictions. And we were talking about this time last year. What is your advice to people who want to play it safe?
So, there's no question we're all very tired. We're just going to be an awful lot tired if we end up an awful lot more tired if, in 2 months from now, we're looking at needing to impose further restrictions. So, it really is this short period of time now where we do have the childhood vaccinations coming online. If we can get, another 7 or 8% of our population vaccinated, and all of those adults 12 and above who have chosen not to get vaccinated, if we can encourage them to get the shot before the holidays, we're going to be in a much better place. And a lot of that fatigue, a lot of that effort is going to be worthwhile if we can really, get to the end game of the pandemic in not so far a future.
Right. We're talking about the holidays, right? So, Dr. Juni, in terms of case numbers and perhaps hospitalization numbers, where do you see us by, let's say, Christmas?
Oh, it entirely depends on now what's happening next. If we leave this trajectory, I would hope, that we would be around 1,000 cases per day. But, nobody knows. It depends really on every single one of us. And how do we play that locally? I would believe that we could get into a shape that we are around 1,000 cases or so when we enter the holiday season. And by then, hopefully, the 5 to 11-year-olds have already all had their first shot, which will help us too. And let's not forget, this other aspect, which is the third dose rollout. Quite a lot of people are already eligible. This will continue this way. This will help. But it's always two things. It's vaccination, more and more and more, plus a few public health measures. Just vaccines alone, forget it. It won't work. This will only work next year when spring is there again.
So, Ray Watt, this begs the next question. The province announced it was not that long ago that its plan was, as of the end of March, to lift all public health restrictions. No more masking inside, going back to life as it was. Are we on the right track to get there? Do you envision it?
I'm an optimist. I envision it, but it's a mistake to always tie these decisions to calendar dates. They must be tied to the observable metrics we see on the ground. Look, we know how to control this disease. We vaccinate, as mentioned, and we use certain key public health assets like good quality mask wearing, ventilation, rapid testing when we can do so, and enforcing the vaccine mandates and vaccine passports we currently have. So there's a lot of messing around the edges we haven't done well yet. And today I've been thinking a lot about the extent to which we are actually enforcing the measures we have in place. Until that's done to high efficiency, it's hard to say exactly when certain measures will be taken off the table.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Dr. Peter Juni, Dr. Barry Pakes, and Ray Watt Deonandan, thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.